Welcome into another episode of the Magic Happy Hour by Happy Hour Sports. I'm your host, Shell Michael. And man, what a disappointing end of the weekend it was the other night with the loss to Boston. Disappointing, but a little encouraging, right? Like, at least as encouraging as a loss can be. But when I wrapped up my last episode, we had just beaten the Warriors at home, and then we went on to also beat the Clippers and then also the Knicks. That means we're, Orlando Magic 3-0 on our homestand. And I even said, looking ahead, that the back-to-back home and away versus the Knicks and then away at the Celtics was going to be a brutal one over the Saturday-Sunday weekend. But I will say we felt a lot better about it once we'd beaten the Knicks on Saturday. But who knew we'd going to be heading up to Boston and then playing without Jalen Suggs and without Wendell Carter Jr. and without Goga Batadze? Like, we all knew Paolo was still going to be out, and I will say that I'm starting to get a little concerned about that. Paolo went out with a groin injury in the November 12th matchup against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, and he's been out ever since. So that's already 6 games, and he's slated to miss tonight's game in Philly, which is going to be his 7th. And we need to remember that you are only eligible for the All-Star game and any postseason awards if you play at least 65 games. So the way the math works on that, on an 82-game schedule, that means you can only miss 17 games. And again, Paolo's missed 6, on his way to miss the 7th tonight against the Sixers. So I'm not going to take a lot of time in this episode to break down the 3 games that we played since my last episode, but they do warrant at least a small recap each. First off, that Warriors game. I know I spoke briefly about this at the tail end of the last episode, but we had just won that game on the night that I was recording. And something funny happened right afterward, which I've since noticed as a trend in the league. So the Warriors, they threw everything they had at us because we're obviously their Super Bowl. It makes sense. But Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, they scored 33 and 34 points respectively on us, and they still lost behind an incredibly balanced scoring output from the Orlando Magic. We had all 5 starters and Anthony Black in double digits, as well as pretty unexpected 8 points from Tyus Jones on 3-for-3 shooting, 2-for-2 from deep. So that loss to the Orlando Magic was so demoralizing that the Warriors just completely emptied the tank and they had nothing left to give for the next night. They went to Miami the very next night and they held out Steph Curry. They held out Jimmy Butler. They held out Draymond Green. I'm going to tell you right now, these were not actual injuries or illnesses. This was Steve Kerr, their coach, giving a big middle finger to the NBA. This was Golden State's 5th back-to-back of the season out of 17 games that they've played so far. That is pretty excessive. In addition to their early season schedule being pretty road heavy, the 5 back-to-backs to this point actually lead the league. No other team has had 5 back-to-backs. The Magic have had 4, but the Warriors have had 5. Now you want to look at a team like Houston Rockets, by comparison, they've had 0 back-to-backs so far. We are already a month into the season, and the Houston Rockets still have not played a single back-to-back. So I do think that Steve Kerr kind of has a point. But I mentioned a second ago, Orlando Magic, we've had 4 back-to-backs now, with this Boston game the other night being our 4th. So I do want to touch a little bit more on this a little later in the video as regards the heavy schedule and kind of how teams are treating it. So let me bookmark that, and we're going to revisit it a little bit later. But after that Warriors game, though, we hosted the Clippers. This team, at least in the past few years, has been a huge thorn in our side. No matter how good or bad the Clippers have been, we just never seem to have an answer for what they have. We can't ever overcome what James Harden gives them. Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac, not to mention Nick Batum always seems to get hot against us and just drain threes from all over the court. Our Thursday night game against them was just fun. I mean, we scored over 30 points in each quarter. That game never really felt like it was in any kind of jeopardy of slipping away from us. James Harden still went off. He did what he was going to do. Kawhi Leonard didn't play, but we led the LA Clippers 41-15 in fast break points, and we only turned the ball over 10 times. Speaking of turnovers, the points off turnovers were insanely lopsided in our favor, 33-13. So again, we had 6 players that were in double figures, though strangely, Wendell Carter Jr. was not one of them. He just did not have a good game. I think he only scored 7 or 8 points the whole game, but we shot 48% from the field and 53% from three-point range. I did not misspeak there. The Orlando Magic, the team that I'm repping, The team that set records last year for ineptitude from the three-point line shot 18 of 34 from range. And we just absolutely dismantled the Clippers and sold them for parts. I do got to mention this. We broke their spirit so bad that Chris Paul announced his retirement the very next day. Just realize that he can't hang with the youth of the league when you got guys like running circles around him like the Magic were that night. So we do have to talk about the play of the game, though. Jalen Suggs, he's running back on defense, and he steals a Clippers pass. I mean, he dives to the floor, slides like 20 feet, almost upends Chris Dunn, but he's got possession of the ball while he's sliding. He stops, gets up, dribbles a couple times, passes it up ahead to Tristan da Silva. Tristan immediately passes it back to Suggs, who's now at a full speed run at the three-point line. The defender slides over to defend the rim, and Jalen Suggs instead lobs the ball up to Goga Bitadze, flushes it home. Crowd goes nuts. Jalen's doing it, repping Orlando Magic, repping the city, the jersey, the whole 9 yards. This is just vintage Jalen Suggs, and absolutely, it's the version of Magic basketball that we expected for this season. So that was a fun Thursday night game, but then we had the back-to-back home and away over the weekend, home versus the Knicks, and then immediately away the very next night at Boston. And if you had told me ahead of time that we can only win one of those two games, and you'd let me choose which one, I would have chosen the Knicks game. One, because I don't like them. Two, because their fans are 95% awful to interact with, except for Nick. Shout out to you, Nick. But three, because they are one of the biggest fan bases here in Orlando, and they come close to outnumbering Magic fans in our own building every single time they come here. So watching Knicks fans leave Kia Center mad, it's like a drug for me, man. Just hook me up to an IV, inject that straight into my veins, please. I can't get enough of that. I was on Twitter trolling all night, all the Knicks spaces and all the Knicks accounts that were, crying and whining and talking about all the reasons they lost. I was commenting things like, I would have paid good money to have access to your meltdown. Thank you for not paywalling this. So yeah, we won. I will say it was a shame that it came on the heels of Landry Shamet getting hurt early in the game, and that predictably led to Knicks fans all over social media saying that Orlando plays dirty and that it's prison basketball. Look, in one way, I see it as a small compliment, but it's still annoying to hear. Knicks fans as a whole, they just don't know how to lose gracefully. And with that said, the officiating crew that night was awful. Jenna Schroeder, she was one of the refs. If you remember, she's the one who ejected Andre Drummond last year when Philly was playing against the Spurs. They given him a tech, and then she gives him a second tech. Then she immediately confers with the other refs. Then they rescind second technical foul. She goes over and tells Philadelphia coach Nick Nurse, "Oh, I effed up, bleep." But she's not a good ref, and so some of the anger might be justified. I will give some credit to Knicks media, at least most of the major Knicks podcasters, because most of them were in lockstep, not only with each other, but also with players from the Knicks, with the coaching staff from the Knicks saying, yeah, the officiating wasn't great, but Orlando just plays us hard. We have no answer for it. And it's true. I've watched every Magic game every season for the past 12 years, and at least over the last few, we certainly bring a little something extra for them each time we play them. The only exception I can think of was last year when the Knicks just absolutely embarrassed the Magic on national television. I really think the Knicks could have won that game by 60. They kind of let their foot off the gas at the end, and Orlando did kind of make it not as embarrassing, but it was still the ugly game. But this Knicks game reminded me a lot of the one where we beat them about a week and a half ago in New York. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns still had good nights. We did everything that we could to stifle everybody else. Mikal Bridges actually had a better game this go around, but losing Shamet was probably what affected this game the most. That and the fact that they were already without OG Anunoby. But hey, Orlando Magic, we have no Paolo Banchero. We have no Mo Wagner. So we don't have any sympathy. And so less than 3 minutes into this game, though, this was the Landry Shamet injury. Shamet was chasing, I think it was Jalen Suggs up the court. And Jalen uses a Wendell Carter Jr. screen right at midcourt to shake Shamet. But instead of just getting screened, Landry Shamet runs full speed into Wendell Carter Jr. Shamit gets called for the foul, but then he comes up holding his shoulder, and he's just grimacing bad. And he went straight to the locker room, doesn't return, looks like he dislocated his shoulder. And, I'm sure everybody in Knicks fandom is holding their breath because this is the same shoulder, the same injury that it looked like happened to him last year that held him out for pretty much half the year. So, good news is that we are hearing now, a couple days later, that it's not a dislocated shoulder. It turned out to be a right shoulder sprain. Still not great, but at least it's not as serious as a dislocation would have been. But the Orlando Magic just had a great game shooting still. Not nearly what they did to the Clippers, but the Magic went 13 out of 33 from deep for a pretty respectable 39.4%. Still far above still far above our season average. But Franz Wagner dropped in 37 points on 68.4% shooting, and that included 4 of 6 from deep. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that 37 points he scored is 3 points off of his career high. But Desmond Bane had 27, Jalen Suggs had 26. Actually, this was a pretty weird game because Coach Mosley never came back out after the halftime session. So assistant coach Joe Prunty actually had to step into Coach Mosley's place and finish coaching up the game for the whole second half. But it was great to see that we still got the win. But the absolute cherry on top was that this was the turkey game. Every year, the Orlando Magic's last home game before Thanksgiving, the broadcast team cooks up a turkey. And if we win, they'll have a player from our team carve up the turkey. And this year, it was Franz Wagner, star of the game, scored his 37 points. So he's the one that did the honors. And when he was done carving and then ripping off the turkey leg, he made sure to say, "Hey, I'm not eating that though." Probably for the best. Actually, if you are new to the turkey game for the Orlando Magic, they cook this turkey probably pregame, and it ends up just sitting around for like 3 hours while the game's going on. So by the time the game ended, I'm sure it probably had some bacteria already growing. So probably best that we don't have guys eating that. But there have been dudes in the past. Cole Anthony's a bit into the turkey leg. So, but yeah, all this brings us back to the Celtics game Sunday night where we held out Wendell Carter Jr., Goga Bitadze, Jalen Suggs, and Paolo Banchero still. And we ended up getting huge minutes from all the dudes on the end of our bench. And before we dive into some of the numbers and some of the storylines of our young guys, I do want to draw that parallel back to the Warriors game like I mentioned earlier. Remember how I said that their game against the Heat, the Warriors game against the Heat, the very next night after playing the Magic in Orlando, that I remember I said to you earlier that was like Steve Kerr's middle finger to the league? Yeah. This Boston game felt like Orlando giving the middle fingers to the league. So again, this was our fourth back-to-back. We had just played at home in Orlando the night before against the Knicks, and then we immediately had to get on a flight and probably land in Boston around 1 or 2 a.m. We knew Paolo would still be out. That was one we were prepared for. It had looked like Jalen Suggs had been off his minutes restriction finally, so I was hopeful that we were finally going to see him on the second night of a back-to-back, but no, they hold him out. Something about his knee. To be fair, Jalen Suggs did knock knees with a Knicks player Saturday night, so that could have been the issue, or maybe it's just the same thing, the injury management from the surgery last season. But we also sat Wendell Carter Jr., not great. So then we slotted in Goga Bitadze to start, but then it was announced like an hour before the game that Goga's out too with an ankle injury or something. I'm just thinking that sounds kind of suspicious. And we instead start Orlando Robinson. I don't think he's played at all for us this year. Maybe, preseason he has, but nothing in the regular season. I will say credit to Orlando Robinson. He did not play poorly. He went 3 of 4 from the field, including hitting his only 3-point attempt. He finished the night with 7 points, 3 boards, and an assist. But when I talk about these coaches giving these middle fingers to the league, look at what just happened last night. The Cleveland Cavaliers played the Toronto Raptors, and they did the same exact thing. They held out like 6 or 7 dudes off their team, all for these pretty suspicious, dubious reasons, all various type stuff. But it just feels like teams are kind of getting to the point where they're saying, hey, I'm not really threatened by this team. So again, the Warriors not really threatened by the Heat, the Magic not really threatened by the Celtics, or in this case, the Cavaliers not really threatened by the Raptors, saying like, hey, this is one that we think we can lose and still be fine in the standings or still be fine when the year shakes out. So almost like it's a scheduled loss and we're just giving it to the other team. And that, again, that's just what these have been feeling like. I think we're going to see more and more of this around the league until some of the scheduling stuff gets fixed. Maybe we start the season a week early. Maybe we finish it a week late. Maybe we do both. I don't think we're going to shorten the season by games. I know that's a popular one that's going around. Oh, just drop it from 82 games to 72 games or 60 games. There's no way. The owners don't want to say no to that money. You got to think of all the staff that work these games in each stadium all around the country. Nobody's giving up these home games. There's just too much revenue. And so if that's not going to happen, I think the only other way that you can kind of lighten the load on some of these players over an 82 game schedule really is to either start the season early, finish it late, or both, some combination thereof. So, but get back to the Celtics game. I really think the story of the game just was that Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla, I think he just kept his foot on the gas most of the night. Orlando's young guns led as spirited of a comeback as you could hope for in the fourth quarter, and it gave Magic fans a ton of confidence as to who's available for us if the need ever presents itself. So our bench scoring in this game, Orlando versus Boston Sunday night, it favored Orlando 66 to 57, and almost half of that number was Jet mother flipping Howard dropped in 30 points. Listen to the stat line. Jet Howard went 11 of 23 shooting, so that's 47.8%. But he went 5 of 13 from deep, 38.5%, and a perfect 3 of 3 from the free throw line. He also goes on to record 7 rebounds and 3 assists in the game. Now, how many more games this year will Jet Howard be our leading scorer? I hope 0, but that was great to see. Our rookies really put in some impressive performances as well. Jace Richardson gave us 18 points off the bench. Noah Penda gave us another 13. But again, this just felt like Orlando prioritizing the 2 games that we have this week over that rest disadvantage game Sunday in Boston. And the games that I'm referring to for this week, let's actually go ahead and get on to that. The game that's happening tonight, actually, it's probably already started as I record this, in Philadelphia, and then Friday night's game in Detroit. Both games are NBA Cup games, and both games are away games for Orlando. In our group, the Pistons and the Magic are both currently 2-0, and that's in Cup play. So this week will be the 2 games that determine whether or not we advance into the knockout stages of the NBA Cup tournament or whether we're left out like we were in the first year of its inception. So there might be teams who don't take this thing seriously, the NBA Cup, but I really feel like it means a ton to our guys. $500,000 per person on the line. That kind of money might not be life-changing to guys on our team like Franz or Paolo or Jalen Suggs, but they all know what that kind of money could do for a guy like Jamal Cain or Orlando Robinson, our two-way guys, or to even our rookies, Noah and Jace, even to Jet 30-point Howard. I mean, like, some of these young guys on the team that are still either on rookie deals or like Jet Howard, the option not getting picked up, $500K can go a long way. And so I really just think more than anything, it would be great to see Orlando make some progress in the tournament, make it further than we did last year. But first, we've got to get out of the group stage. In order to do that, I really think we need to beat Philly. I say that because Detroit, our Friday night game, they're just looking like a juggernaut this year. And as I record this, Detroit is 15-2. They are currently on a 13-game win streak. With our NBA Cup game there on Friday, it's going to be incredibly tough, right? We already knew that. Even if it wasn't an NBA Cup game, the Friday night game in Detroit was already going to be difficult for us. Philly really seems to be the easier of the two, the more gettable of the two. And it is possible to advance with a 3-1 record in group play, but we'll need that point differential tiebreaker to work in our favor. With that said, Orlando is currently at plus 20 in point differential, which sounds good. We're in Group B. It sounds good, that point differential, until you look at who we might be up against for the wild card. And in Group A, both Toronto and Cleveland have a better point differential than us in Group A. And then in Group C, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat both have a better point differential than us. So whoever wins Group A and whoever wins Group C, the second person in their group, if either of those teams finish 3-1, and if Orlando beats Philly and loses to Detroit and we finish 3-1, Well, guess what? Detroit's going to advance, and then we're going to be looking at a point differential tiebreaker between us and whoever finishes second in Group A, whoever finishes second in Group C, and they're both beating us per point differential right now between 12 to 15 points above us right now. So we got some big work to do. Hopefully the game in Philly tonight is just an Orlando blowout win over the Philadelphia 76ers. And then if we are going to lose to Detroit, which I think is likely on Friday night, hopefully we only lose by like a point or two, just so it doesn't absolutely kill us in that column. So we're gonna need some help. I'll likely record another episode on Saturday evening to break down how everything shook out, how each team fared, and what it all means for the Orlando Magic. As for now, though, I am going to sign off. I'm going to go get myself some dinner. I'm going to watch all this Magic Sixers game. I hope everybody watching this video right now has a great Thanksgiving holiday. And until next time, let's go Magic.